You've always hated me, haven't you, Finn? The words slipped out before I could stop them. I hadn't meant to confront my teenage stepson so directly, but his constant coldness had finally become too much to bear. Finn looked up sharply from his laptop, his blue eyes narrowing. What makes you say that? I took a deep breath. Ever since your dad married me, you've been distant and aloof. You barely speak to me except in grunts and monosyllables. Finn closed his laptop with a snap. Did you expect us to become best buddies overnight? You're only 6 years older than me. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted us to be civil, but clearly you have an issue with me. Finn was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his words stunned me. You want to know why I don't like you, Alara? Because you married a murderer. I recoiled, blood draining from my face. What? What are you talking about? Finn held my gaze unflinchingly. My father had something to do with my mother's disappearance. He knows more than he's telling. My pulse pounded in my ears. Cora's mysterious vanishing had haunted Beckett for years. They'd been in the middle of a messy divorce when she'd inexplicably dropped off the grid. Finn, you can't make wild accusations like that. The police investigated thoroughly. The police are idiots, Finn cut in harshly. They didn't see what I saw. Dad's unexplained absences, cryptic phone calls, bloody clothes hastily stuffed in the trash. He knows what happened to her, I'm sure of it. I sank down on the couch, my legs suddenly weak. Beckett, my husband of 2 years, a murderer? And yet... Dim memories surfaced unbidden, small inconsistencies I'd brushed off, the unexplained cash withdrawals, his caginess about his past. Why are you telling me this now? I asked quietly. Finn's eyes were hard. Because I want your help taking him down, I recoiled. Finn, you need to think clearly. Accusing your own father. I've thought of little else for the past 2 years, Finn cut in sharply. Will you help me or not? My mind reeled. Could Beckett really have engineered his ex-wife's disappearance? But Finn seemed so certain. Surely there must be some truth to his suspicions. I knew then I had to learn the full truth, no matter the cost. For Finn's sake. For my own sake. For Cora, whose fate remained a mystery. Tell me everything, I said, steeling myself. Don't leave anything out. Finn nodded, his expression equal parts triumphant and grave. The story came pouring out in a torrent. The puzzle pieces of the past were finally slotting into place, revealing a picture more frightening than I could have imagined. My husband was a stranger to me, but I knew one thing now with stark clarity. I would uncover whatever really happened to Cora. No matter where the truth led, no matter how much collateral damage it caused. Justice would be served. I would see to it myself. I barely slept that night after Finn's bombshell revelation. My mind spun with unanswered questions and doubts. Could my husband truly be involved in Cora's disappearance? And if so, what exactly was I married to? The next morning, I waited until Beckett left for work before beginning my investigation. My first stop was his home office, searching for anything that could confirm Finn's accusations. I rifled through drawers and cabinets, finding nothing but mundane legal contracts from Beckett's consulting business. I sat back in his leather chair, discouraged. But then I noticed the bottom desk drawer had a false back. I pried it open to reveal a secret compartment containing files marked confidential. With trembling hands, I opened the files. Bank statements, transaction records, offshore holdings, none in Beckett's name. He was hiding money, and lots of it. Buried amidst the papers was a battered journal. It was Cora's handwriting. I froze when I read the opening entry. I know Beckett is having an affair. He thinks he's so clever, but I've started tracking his movements. The journal exposed Beckett's lies, painting a chilling portrait of a man engaged in shady dealings and extramarital trysts. Cora's raw pain leapt off the page. One entry stood out. She'd confronted Beckett about photos of him and a mystery woman demanding a divorce. I remembered Beckett's disappearance on a business trip shortly after that entry's date. Cold fear settled in my gut. Finn had been right. The signs all pointed to Beckett's guilt, but I needed more proof. I jumped as the front door opened. Beckett strode in, back from his office unexpectedly early. I shoved the journal in my purse and tried to act normal. Alara, what are you doing in my office? Beckett asked sharply. Oh, just tidying up a bit, I said with an airy laugh. Beckett's eyes narrowed, flicking to my purse. I held my breath, but he simply grunted and headed for the liquor cabinet, pouring himself a generous glass of whiskey. Rough day at work? I asked, attempting nonchalance. Beckett scowled. The Langley deal is falling through. I have to go smooth things over in person. I knew there was no Langley deal. According to Cora's journal, that was code for meeting his mistress. Anger surged through me, but I bit my tongue. I couldn't confront him yet, not without more evidence. Beckett left again an hour later, supposedly off on his business trip. But I followed him from a distance in my car, my suspicions confirmed when he arrived at a luxury condo and embraced a tall blonde woman. Cora's journal hadn't been clear on the mistress's identity, but now I had a face, and with it, the key to unraveling Beckett's web of lies. I snapped photos of their intimate embrace before driving away undetected, my heart pounding. Beckett's clandestine world was unraveling before my eyes, but I needed help putting together the pieces. Alone, I may not be able to discern the full truth or bring Beckett to justice. I racked my brain, wondering who I could trust, when realization struck. Of course, Dahlia, Cora's best friend from college. She'd been obsessively investigating Cora's disappearance for years. If anyone would believe me, it was her. I still had Dahlia's number from the memorial service. Hands trembling, I called and arranged a meeting for the next morning at a coffee shop downtown. The reckoning was coming, I could feel it. And Dahlia would be the ally I desperately needed to make Beckett finally pay for his sins. Justice for Cora would soon be served. The next morning I arrived early at the coffee shop, nerves jittering. I waved when I saw Dahlia enter. A petite woman with short dark hair, eyes rimmed red as if she hadn't slept. We sat down with our coffees. Dahlia eyed me warily. "What's this about, Alara? Why the urgency to meet?" I took a deep breath. "It's about Cora's disappearance. I think I may have clues about what really happened." Dahlia's eyes sharpened with interest. "What kind of clues?" Haltingly, I told her everything. Finn's accusations against Beckett, the hidden journal, Beckett's mistress. "I know it sounds crazy," I finished breathlessly, but too many things aren't adding up. I think Beckett was involved in Cora's disappearance." Dahlia was silent, staring into her coffee. Finally, she met my eyes. "Alara, I've believed for years that Beckett murdered Cora. He had means, motive, opportunity, but I could never prove it." Hope leapt in my chest. "Then you'll help me try to find evidence against him?" Dahlia nodded, her expression hardening with determination. "Just tell me what you need. Help gathering concrete proof, financial records, emails, anything tying Beckett to Cora's vanishing that will stand up in court." Finn said Beckett had suspicious absences around the time Cora disappeared. "Can you confirm?" Dahlia opened her purse and withdrew a thick manila envelope, sliding it across the table. "I've been compiling a detailed timeline of Beckett's activities and communications. It shows some major gaps and inconsistencies during the period in question." I scanned the timeline, disbelief mounting. Beckett had lied extensively to the police about his whereabouts. "This is huge," I said. "Is there anything directly linking Beckett to Cora's fate, though?" "Not yet," Dahlia said. "Finding the body would provide that, but I've had no luck locating it. Perhaps with your help." She outlined a plan to slip a tracker on Beckett's car and clone his cell phone, intercepting any information that could point to Cora's remains. I balked initially at the legally dubious tactics, but knew we were dealing with an accomplished liar. Drastic measures were needed. We exchanged burner phones to avoid detection. Dahlia's technical skills paired with my access to Beckett would allow us to carry out the surveillance undetected. Dahlia's eyes were hard. "I want justice for my best friend. Beckett won't get away with this, not this time." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "We'll get justice for Cora, I swear it." In that moment, an unbreakable bond was forged between us. With Dahlia's aid, I knew I could uncover the ugly truth about my husband's role in Cora's fate. Beckett's web of lies was unraveling fast, and I would ensure his sins caught up with him. The law had failed Cora so far, but Dahlia and I would not. Over the next few weeks, Dahlia and I closely monitored Beckett's movements, intercepting his communications and tracking his car. It was tense, gut-wrenching work, my mistrust for my husband deepening daily. The smoking gun remained elusive, but we pieced together more circumstantial evidence. Beckett had anonymously purchased items that could aid in disposing a body: shovels, plastic tarps, carpet cleaner. Receipts were found stuffed hastily in his car's glove box. "He's getting sloppy covering his tracks," Dahlia observed. "The mounting stress is making him reckless." We hit another breakthrough when I stole Beckett's laptop. Emails showed he'd paid a shadowy contractor named Grady large sums of cash around Cora's disappearance. Further digging revealed Grady had mob connections. "This proves Grady's involvement," I told Dahlia during one of our covert meetings. "Do you think he could have disposed of the body for Beckett?" Dahlia nodded grimly. "It lines up. The question is, can we trace Grady to Cora's remains before Beckett covers this up further? 10. We decided to clandestinely monitor the upcoming meeting between Beckett and Grady, hoping the body location would be discussed. I hid a listening device in Beckett's office beforehand, my pulse hammering with nerves. The device yielded a chilling conversation, Beckett obliquely referring to taking care of our little problem, and Grady reassuring him no one will find her. Dahlia and I shared a horrified look. It couldn't be more clear they were referencing Cora's body. We have to identify and track Grady, see if he leads us to the remains, Dahlia said. Easier said than done. Grady was a phantom with no digital footprint to exploit, but we soon caught a break. Outside Beckett's office, I snapped a photo of a letter from Grady, including his P.O. box address. The address led us to an apartment leased under a false name. We strategized legal ways to get access. Dahlia said she'd try posing as a utility inspector. My hands shook as we picked the lock one night, expecting Grady's hulking form to emerge from the shadows. But the apartment was empty. We found cryptic receipts for equipment rentals upstate. Could be where the body is, Dahlia said urgently. Then I spotted a rusted shovel tucked behind the TV. Dread filled me as I realized it had been recently used. We need to search those rental properties immediately, I said. Dahlia agreed, a determined glint in her eyes. We were closer than ever to concrete proof of Beckett's sins. The law had failed Cora, but we would uncover the truth and bring her justice. Beckett had evaded consequences long enough. The time had come for his web of lies to burn away in the purifying light of truth. Dahlia and I would see to it personally. The night before Beckett returned from his business trip, Dahlia and I put the final touches on our plan to confront him. My hands shook with adrenaline and nerves. We had strategically installed hidden cameras throughout the house to document Beckett's reactions. All the evidence of his misdeeds, the money trails, his affair, his connection to Grady, was neatly organized in a file. An anonymous tip was ready to send to the police about Grady's rental properties once we extricated a confession from Beckett. "This is it," Dahlia said, her eyes hard with determination. "Tomorrow we make him pay." I nodded, steeling myself. Confronting Beckett filled me with fear, but the desire for justice burned hotter. The next evening, I waited in the living room, heart pounding against my ribs. Beckett's footsteps sounded on the porch steps. Showtime. "Hi, honey. How was your trip?" I injected cheeriness into my tone. Beckett paused, seeming momentarily taken aback by my demeanor. "Oh, tiring, the usual." "Well, you must be exhausted. Sit down and I'll get you a drink." As Beckett settled on the couch, the hidden camera whirred silently. I handed him a whiskey and perched across from him, the incriminating file in my lap. Beckett took a long swig of whiskey. "What's going on, Alara? You're acting strange." "Am I?" I laughed lightly. "Well, I do have something I want to discuss with you." I opened the file folder and began removing papers, bank statements, printouts of emails, Grady's rental property receipts. With each document, Beckett's confident facade cracked further. Fear crept into his eyes. "What is all this?" He tried to bluster. "I don't know what you think you've found." "Oh, I think you know exactly what I've found," I said coldly. "Records of your hidden offshore accounts, communications with your mistress, payoffs to your mob cleanup man, Grady." Beckett lunged, trying to seize the papers. I stood swiftly, stepping away. "It's too late, Beckett. I have copies of everything, and I know what really happened to Cora." His face darkened. "You foolish woman. You don't know anything." "I know you killed her," I shouted, rage breaking through my calm facade. "And you used Grady to hide the body. But we're on to you both now." Beckett went still, radiating menace. "We? That's right." Dahlia stepped from the hallway, arms crossed. Beckett recoiled at seeing her. "You?" he growled. "I should have known you wouldn't let this go." "Cora was my best friend," Dahlia said, eyes flashing. "Now confess what you did to her." Cornered, Beckett's facade fully crumbled, giving way to desperation and violence. The confrontation I'd been dreading was underway, but Dahlia and I had justice on our side, and we would not leave without a confession in hand, no matter the cost. Beckett stared at Dahlia, and I like a cornered animal, eyes wide and breathing ragged. "You have no proof I was involved in Cora's disappearance," he blustered. "These accusations are preposterous." I stepped forward, anger coursing through me. "Stop lying. We have mounds of evidence about your secret offshore accounts, your affair, your connection to Grady. Just admit what you did, you coward." Beckett's face contorted in fury. He lunged at me, but I darted back. "Don't bother denying it," Dahlia said coldly. Alara and I know about the rental cabin. We're searching it for Cora's body as we speak. This was a bluff, but it had the desired effect. Beckett paled. You won't find anything there, he growled. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. We all turned to see Finn standing there, confusion and betrayal etched on his face. What's going on? He demanded. Why are you all shouting? His eyes landed on the incriminating evidence scattered across the coffee table. Finn, go back upstairs, Beckett said sharply. This is just a misunderstanding. I shook my head, tears springing to my eyes. No, Finn deserves to know the truth. Your father is responsible for your mother's disappearance and death. Finn recoiled as if struck. What? No. He turned to Beckett. Dad, tell me that's not true. Beckett said nothing, just kept staring at the floor. Finn's breath came in ragged gasps as the truth sunk in. He rounded on Beckett. How could you? He cried. Mom loved you, she trusted you, and you betrayed her in the worst possible way. Beckett's mouth twisted. You don't understand. Your mother was going to leave me, destroy my career. I couldn't let that happen. So you decided to end her life? Dahlia cut in bitterly. You're more monstrous than I realized. Finn had gone chalk white. I'll never forgive you for this. At Finn's damning words, something seemed to snap in Beckett. He lunged with a roar, shoving me hard. I crashed into the coffee table and tumbled to the floor. You ruined everything, Beckett shouted, bearing down on me. Dahlia grabbed his arm, but he shoved her back violently. I fumbled for my phone to activate the emergency tip to police. But Beckett saw me, face contorting in animal rage as he wrapped his hands around my throat and started to squeeze. Suddenly, Finn tackled him from behind with a guttural cry. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Beckett struck out savagely, catching Finn's temple with his elbow. No, I choked out hoarsely. Adrenaline surged through me, and I threw myself into the fray, clawing at Beckett's face. We were still grappling when the front door splintered open, and police swarmed the room, yelling and pulling Beckett off of me. It was over in seconds. I crawled over to Finn, who was groaning on the floor. A livid bruise was already forming on his temple, but he managed a shaky smile. We got him, he whispered. I squeezed his hand, relief crashing over me. We had done it, uncovered the ugly truth, and made Beckett pay for his sins. Justice had been served at last. In the aftermath of Beckett's violent outburst and arrest, everything moved in a blur. Beckett was taken into custody, ranting and raving about betrayal. Finn and I provided statements to the police about Beckett's confession and attacks. Dahlia slipped away before the police arrived, not wanting to complicate matters given her legally dubious investigative tactics, but she assured me she'd provide an anonymous tip about the rental cabin location. As expected, a search of the cabin uncovered human remains matching Cora's DNA. Along with Beckett's recorded confession, it provided irrefutable evidence of his guilt. He was charged with Cora's murder along with assault and battery charges from his confrontation with Dahlia and me. I took grim satisfaction in seeing Beckett in handcuffs, his charmed life of lies now in tatters. He shot me a look of pure vitriol as he was led away. Finn moved in with me as Beckett's trial got underway. My stepson was struggling, racked with anger and grief over his father's betrayal, but we supported each other through the turbulent aftermath. Having the truth come to light was freeing for Finn. I'm glad Dad's going to face consequences now, he told me one night. Maybe Mom can finally rest in peace. I hoped so too. Cora would never get true justice, but at least her killer would pay. As the trial progressed, more of Beckett's misdeeds came to light, including money laundering and extortion. The prosecution presented a damning case, weaving together the paper trail Dahlia and I had uncovered. Beckett remained arrogantly unrepentant on the stand, trying to smear Cora's name and justify his crimes. Your husband is a sociopath, Dahlia muttered to me as we observed the trial proceedings. In the end, the jury needed less than an hour to convict Beckett of first-degree murder. At the sentencing hearing, Cora's family gave gut-wrenching testimonies about their profound loss. You stole my only daughter, Cora's mother wept, staring Beckett down. You broke our family forever. I hope you rot in jail for what you've done. The judge agreed, handing down the maximum sentence of life without parole. Watching the bailiffs drag a screaming and cursing Beckett away to begin serving his time felt like a weight lifting from my chest. It was finally over. Justice had prevailed. Finn and I exited the courthouse, blinking in the sunlight. What now? Finn asked. I squeezed his shoulder. Now we heal and rebuild our lives on a foundation of trust and honesty. My marriage may have been a sham, but my bond with Finn was real. With Beckett's poisonous presence gone, we could focus on creating a new family together. Hard times likely lay ahead, but we would face them with courage and resilience. The future looked brighter than ever now that Beckett's web of lies had burned away, revealing the light of truth and justice underneath. The months following Beckett's conviction were a period of profound transition. With the trial concluded and Beckett sentenced to life behind bars, Finn and I focused on picking up the pieces and starting fresh. I resumed my marketing career, rebuilding my professional identity after years as Beckett's accessory. Finn finished his senior year of high school and was accepted to college in the fall. "I can't wait to get far away from this town and all the memories," Finn admitted to me one night. His wounds from his dad's betrayal still ran deep, but he was moving forward with resilience. We decided to relocate to a new city and buy a home together. The move signified our new start as an officially blended family, without Beckett's specter looming over us. To new beginnings, I toasted Finn on our first night in the new house. He gave me a genuine smile, more open and affectionate than I'd ever seen from him before. I knew forgiving Beckett would take time and effort for us both. But with each passing day, the pain lessened slightly, the future a little bit brighter. Of course, Beckett did not go quietly into the night. Despite irrefutable evidence and his harsh sentence, he continued proclaiming his innocence from prison, giving interviews to any media outlet that would listen. "Woman scorned frames husband for murder," the tabloids blared. Beckett accused me of fabricating the entire case out of jealousy, calling me a devious femme fatale. "Let him spew his garbage," Dahlia advised when I expressed frustration. "Anyone with a brain sees his lies for what they are." She was right. Beckett's credibility was destroyed. Still, his refusal to show remorse remained a fresh wound. I hoped one day Finn and I would be indifferent to his hateful manipulations. For now, we focused on bonding as a family. I attended Finn's baseball games and academic banquets. He accompanied me on hikes and volunteered with my food bank initiative. The more time passed, the more Finn came out of his shell. With Beckett imprisoned, he was embracing life and all its possibilities. One night at dinner, Finn reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm really glad it was you who married my dad and saw through his crap," he said gruffly. "You're the best thing that ever happened to our family." I teared up and pulled Finn into an embrace. We stayed locked together for a long moment, my heart swelling. We still carried wounds from Beckett's monstrous betrayal, but our family's foundation was stronger than ever. The chapter of Beckett's poisonous influence was closed for good. Finn would carry some of those scars forever, but he was flourishing now that the shadows had lifted. My role as Finn's stepmom had led us down a dark, traumatic path, but out of the ashes hope and healing had been born. Our family ties now anchored us in trust, honesty, and unconditional love.